Hotchkiss on the Big Island of Hawaii is a clean energy wayfinder with the Hawaii State Energy Office, which sponsors the internships. In her comprehensive presentation, she explains the clean energy innovations being used and developed on the Big Island, which includes solar, energy storage, microgrids, agrivoltaics, geothermal, and other technologies. She explains how the Big Island's developing energy technology and experience serves as working examples, which can be used and scaled for use around the world. She understands how Hawaiian culture, Aloha Aina, contributes to solving the challenges of developing resilient energy systems for Hawaii's isolated electrical grids, using energy efficiency, conservation, and diversification for renewable energy systems. She is confident Hawaii's efforts are on target to meet its energy goal of 100% renewable energy and can be seen as a laboratory freely giving its successes to the world.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Aloha and welcome everyone. This is the May 2nd meeting of Engineers and Architects of Hawaii. I'm Barbara Rogers, serving as president. Thank you so much for joining us. First, we'd like to recognize some of our guests.
Aloha, I'm Kameino Snekanelua with the Clean Energy WayFinders and the Hawaii State Energy Office, presented here a couple weeks ago, and here to support Tess.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. We enjoyed that.
Hello, everyone. Parker Kushima, also with the Hawaii State Energy Office, coordinate the Clean Energy WayFinders program. So proud of them for stepping up to this, present at these meetings. And I actually presented with you folks back in 2021, I believe, on a topic of mobility hubs. So great to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back.
Aloha, Gail Suzuki Jones, also from the Hawaii State Energy Office. Good to see you all, and looking forward to Tess's presentation. Here to support her. Go Tess.
Thank you and welcome.
Hey, good morning. I'm Ben. I'm a clean energy wayfinder. I'm with Parker and Tess and Comet, and here to support and listen in and learn.
Great. Good to have you. Thank you.
Frank Herman, airport planner engineer, living on the mainland now.
And Bill Bonnet, past president of EAH 50 years ago.
Wow. Your loyalty to the organization is really appreciated.
Hi, this is Joel Ganotisi with Architects Hawaii. I'm just here to listen in. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mahilani, Energy Office.
Okay, there's a lot of energy here this morning. A lot of energy. It's going to be a very energetic, interesting meeting. Okay, so before we begin the program, let's ask Mac, who's in our comedy corner over there, to give us a little humor. Mac?
Well, it's going to be it's a cartoon. It's a fellow kind of lamenting, and he says, you know, my wife didn't complain until I got hearing aids. That's the joke.
Okay, heard that one.
Thank you. So at this time, we will turn the program over to Howard, who is going to introduce the speaker.
You have gathered by now that there's an organization or a group of people called WayFinders, and they sign on with the Hawaii State Energy Office for terms of 1 semester or 1 year. And Comet introduced himself. He's a 2-time wayfinder, and he spoke last session. And now we have the honor of Tess Hotchkiss, and her last name is after a famous canon, apparently, and her first name is probably derived from Tess of the Ubervilles, one of the most famous novels in the history of English literature. And she's coming to us from the Big Island, and she's going to focus on energy matters in the Big Island, but I suspect she will go out statewide and tell us things that we never knew, hopefully very mysterious with some good stories in it. So, Tess, make yourself shown and take it away.
Good morning. Aloha. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to speak here today. My name's Tess Hotchkiss, and yes, my last name is famous for the cannons, but actually I'm named after Star Trek. There's a character named Tess in there that my mom hates, and so she changed it to a T, and lo and behold, my name is now Tess. But yeah, my journey at this moment has been shaped by a lot of things, 3 intersecting paths to be specific. I have a background in international development, a huge love for sustainability, as well as my current work that I do as a clean energy wayfinder here on the Big Island of Hawaii. But each of those paths has taught me something a little bit different, but they've all pointed to the same truth, and that is that the most powerful solutions to global change often comes from the places that are deeply rooted in community and resilience and innovation. And that's exactly what makes Hawaii, especially the Big Island, so extraordinary, because this isn't just a place that's adopting clean energy. It's literally like a living lab, a real world proving groundbreaking place where we rethink energy systems and in ways that are locally grounded and totally globally relevant. So I just want to share today about how the Big Island can teach what the world can teach the world about energy innovation and why the lessons that we're learning here are super important far beyond just our shorelines. Because what I have seen coming from this place, especially being surrounded by sustainability efforts and the community, has been a huge culture shock in a positive way. Okay, so this is a little bit about me. I've done international development work. When I was 15, I actually went to China and taught English. My most recent adventure, I did my Peace Corps service down in South America in Paraguay, where I was teaching sustainable agricultural practices. I've also done development work over in Nicaragua as well as the Dominican Republic. Living abroad and all that has brought a lot of perspective in international development work and developmental endeavors and what we can learn from each other. It's been super important and very engrossing of my career. So I learned all these things being transplanted about Hawaii about 5 years ago, and I've been nothing but short of impressed with Hawaii in the various ways that it's super unique in the way that this place touches all aspects of life. So part of my work as a clean energy wayfinder is to work directly in my community. So one thing that we do is working with the Hawaii Green Business Program, which provides technical assistance to organizations aiming to improve their sustainability practice. And the program focuses on helping these businesses either conserve energy or water, they reduce their waste and pollution, as well as implementing better or even more sustainable business practices. And then also just helping enhance their environmental performance just a little bit. So participants receive guidance on adopting best practices that not only benefit them and the environment, but also lead to cost saving as well as improved efficiency. So Hawaii Green Business Program emphasizes the importance of collaboration between businesses, government agencies, and the community. All of these encompass are super, super important because by fostering these partnerships, the program aims to create a collective impact on Hawaii's environmental goals. So participants are encouraged to share their experiences and strategies, which promotes a culture of continuous improvement and growth and shared learning, which is super important because it happens here a lot on Hawaii Island. So a couple of the businesses that I have worked with, the one there on the bottom left, that is Pele's Kitchen. They are a direct farm-to-table restaurant. They have their own farm as well as their own circulatory composting system. It's very comprehensive, really fun, really neat, really awesome to see. And they do partnerships with schools as well, doing agricultural education. The one in the middle there, that is Sweet Cane Cafe. They are also directly farm-to-table, complete with community partnerships as well. And then the one on the far right is Locavore. It's a completely local only grocery store. So everything there is from the islands, everything. And they have incredibly strong ties with the community and sustainability practices. So working alongside these community members has been incredible to get my foot in the door, to see these communities, and also get a really grounded sense of what sustainability is here in Hawaii and what that looks like through these communities. My energy topic today is kind of how Big Island can be a lesson for the world. So some of the key points that I really hope to drill in today are like, what's unique to Hawaii? What is the diversity of options that we have? What are the pathways that bring us there? as well as really honing in on the idea that like we pretty much are the first to do so, as well as like this overarching idea of sovereignty and the weight of that exists here. Like it's a huge conversation piece. A lot of community members talk about it. It's always something that people are working towards here, which is great. And that pull is just very, very strong. And then overall how culture here plays into that as well. Because these things not only shape our energy landscape, but they pioneer the energy landscape globally. And there's so many lessons and opportunities that we can look at. Big Island specifically, we have solar and microgrids, we have geothermal, lots of wind, hydropower, bioenergy, and OTEC. And OTEC is ocean thermal energy conversion. It's something relatively new. There are a lot of projects happening on this island that are kind of looking for these interesting pathways to new renewable energies, I guess you could almost say. So there's a lot happening, and it's a forefront of these experiments. And I'm sure that there's some that I'm missing because it's so diverse. There's so much that's happening. So if we were to look at Hawaii Island specifically and where all these projects and stuff are happening, they're kind of very dispersed everywhere. And they're really relevant to what is there. Like if you look in Hilo, there's a lot of hydropower because if you see on the map there is a lot of water coming down through those rivers and stuff. So we have the ability to capture that energy. As well in the Waimea area, there's a lot of sun. So that's kind of where most of our solar projects are based. So it's really good to just get a comprehensive look of like what's available and where and what kind of distribution happens from there. So yeah, I want you to notice the distribution in the location of these things, as well as also noticing the lack of distribution and the different types of energy sources that are happening. There's quite a bit happening here. So Hawaii as a whole has a huge incentive to move to renewables, just because the state in itself has the highest electricity rate in the entire US. It's pretty crazy. It's really expensive here, just like everything else, as well as our energy practices being expensive and really intensive. That is also compiled on top of like the vulnerability of the people that live here. So all these crazy systems and how we get our energy makes us a really vulnerable group. Just living here and being on an island that is so isolated makes you a very vulnerable little central piece. And in Hawaii, our electricity prices are directly linked to oil. That is because of our supply chain. So Hawaii has a very limited ability to be able to refine. So a lot of the oil that's coming in has already been refined, up to about 70% of it. And those are coming from places like California, Washington, Alaska, as well as some other foreign places. So all this oil and all this stuff is coming from really far away, and it's making its way into Honolulu first because that's where the biggest port is. That's where they can do the most things with it. And then from there, it's distributed out on large barges and tankers into other places. So first, it's imported. Mostly refined petroleum products from the West Coast, or usually Asia, Singapore, South Korea, and then they're delivered for Big Island into the Hilo Harbor. From there, they're stored, they're offloaded into fuel storage terminals, and then distributed from there even further. So this is just like a super comprehensive, like energy comes here, goes here, and you can just notice the transportation of it is already getting longer and longer. So from the fuel facility, it goes distributed to tanker trucks, which take it to gas stations, airports, like Hilo International or Kona. Then it goes to commercial and industrial users, and then finally to the utilities like Helco, where they create a majority of our energy. So yeah, a lot of it is used. This energy is used by transportation, is used for electricity generation, as well as commercial use. Here's all the fossil fuels that Hawaii uses, and then how much. I really want to focus on just the resource and the efficiency here, not so much like the middle ground, but a lot of it isn't being captured. There's a lot of energy wasted happening. That's a natural process that happens with energy, but it's pretty bad here, I'm not going to lie. So transmission and distribution losses occur when electricity travels over long power lines to the generator to the user, as well as heat dissipation in the wires, especially over long distances. And then Hawaii's island grids, which are more compact, reduce those losses as well. You also have conversion losses, as if you were changing one thing to another. So coal being converted into energy, you have loss going from there. Sunlight being converted into energy, you have losses there. It's a natural process of just making energy. And then there's also losses from storage. So when electricity is stored in batteries, it is also lost from charging and discharging, and that can range from anywhere to like 5 to 15%, depending on the type of technology that you're using. And then one maybe someone might not think about is like the idle or phantom loads, like your TV being plugged in or just leaving things plugged in. And that can actually have a little bit of a draw, and you're using electricity there, but that's not energy that's actually being used. So that can actually add up to a really big significant portion of the residential energy loss happening, as well as mechanical inefficiencies like motors or pumps going bad, loss from friction, heat, vibration, all that. And then another problem that I see here specifically on Big Island is the poor maintenance or the outdated equipment. Things that aren't updated tend to use more energy than, things that are updated. As well as heat loss in buildings. Building codes are huge here. A lot of people kind of just live in these really old buildings and tend to hang out outside and use jealousy windows and all that, and that's all good. But the buildings that do exist, sometimes the older ones are poorly insulated. So when you install systems like air conditioning and all that, there's a lot of loss that happens there. Being geographically isolated, Hawaii is super vulnerable to many other things like fuel distribution, as if like natural disasters were to happen, maybe something geopolitical was happening abroad, or there was a blip in the shipping, containers that are coming on over every 2 to 3 weeks, as well as grid instability, like if a storm were to come through or if the volcano were to be going off like it has been. Our power went out last night for some reason, don't know why, but it's super, super common here. And just like the reminder that like we are super, super vulnerable. Like we are in the most isolated, inhabited piece of land in the world. It's 2,400 miles to California one way and 3,800 miles to Japan the other way. And this grid, it's a specific grid only for Hawaii. So the grid's isolation from the mainland limits its capacity to handle larger or more centralized fuel plants. So we really rely on everything coming to us. So in these images, the one on the bottom left is Puna Geothermal. That's kind of like right after the volcanic eruption happened after in 2018. And then we're also really susceptible to like natural disaster. There's a picture of Lahaina there on the right, just because these things really do affect us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what solar, photovoltaics, agrivoltaics, and what microgrids look like on the Big Island. There I have an image of Kuawehi. It's like the newest solar project that's happening here on Big Island. It literally just started up like a couple days ago. Pretty interesting. In terms of Hawaii and solar, we can all agree that we love the sun here in Hawaii. It's beautiful. It gives us beautiful beach days. It gives us shimmering tans. It gives us abundant life. It's one of the better parts about living here, but there's more to it than just that. Solar power is about harnessing the already beautiful and abundant energy that exists into usable energy that we can use. So Hawaii ranks 5th for solar energy, just because it's the most affordable state for going solar, with the average solar install taking only 12.4% of the median household income if you were to get solar. And this affordability may be why Hawaii comes in 2nd for the most solar installations. There's a lot of people here who have solar. Hawaii ranks in 3rd nationally for the number of homes powered by solar energy, 360 homes per 1,000 people. And then the state also ranks 4th for the highest percentage of energy run by solar at 19.4%. So some pretty crazy numbers. And I think that's just due to like where we are. There's a lot of abundance of sunlight here. So looking at the radiance of the sun, on the mainland, the southwest area of the country is kind of the #1 leader there. But then you look at us, Hawaii, oh, so cute. We also have pretty strong, you know, photovoltaics happening there. And then specifically looking at Big Island, we have a lot more land that can allow us to do solar. And then it gets adopted pretty easily just because of our high energy costs already being so high. Any sort of reduction is, you know, super helpful for people. And then I also just wanted to like drill in that like what works in one state might not work in another, but it's really good to look at as like a comprehensive study. So like nuclear is not going to work in Hawaii just due to our land restraints and all that jazz. It might not be the safest option. So we have to look at our other options and what is abundantly available to us. Well, the sun. So there are 2 different types of solar projects that I see here. There's distributed solar. So think like rooftops. So these are the smaller scale PV systems that generate electricity on site for on-site use. And then excess energy might be exported to the grid. So think like rooftop solar on your home that you're using. That's what a distributed solar system looks like because it's distributed out throughout an area. And then there's utility scale solar, which is a larger project, which you're seeing here, that first photo on the left. That's Halekuawehi. That's the newest solar project happening here on Hawai'i Island. It is a utility scale solar project. They're centralized solar farms. They're typically located on open land and supply electricity directly to the grid. And utilities operate or procure energy from these systems under long-term contracts. Utility scale projects are easier to control and forecast and are integrated into grid planning. So there's a lot of different tactics here happening at play. So some of the benefits of distributed solar, so those rooftop solar panels on the homes, is it empowers individuals and communities to generate their own power. There's that idea of sovereignty. It reduces the strain on the grid by producing energy where it's used. There's a lot less losses happening there just because it's happening right where it's being made. It increases resilience because the power stays on even if part of the grid goes bad. So say your power plant down the street stops making electricity, you have a solar system on your roof, you might be able to still keep your lights on. That's huge. That's a huge safety thing too for people who are on like life support or have medical devices and stuff. It's really empowering. And then some of the benefits of the utility scale, like the solar farms, the bigger, larger projects, is the economics of the scale. It lowers the price of the kilowatt hour, as well as it's easier to pair with battery storage, which I will talk on a little bit later here. As well as its centralized grid management for smoother integration. It can help with big demand loads, especially with cities or industry, and can be sited non-arable or degraded land. So the land use things can be moved around so we can make these projects happen. But importantly, what I want to highlight here is that it's really important to have both, because the more diversity you have in different systems, the more resiliency you will have. A mixed spreads risks, reduces outages, increases flexibility, and leads to faster decarbonization, which is one of our goals for 2045. Big farms build capacity fast, rooftops fill in the gaps, and what's more inclusive is it gives everyone kind of a way to participate, from homeowners all the way to these large utilities, and it optimizes the grid performance. It distributes solar and distributes the demand and all it just fills in the gaps. So one of the fun things that I have seen here on Big Island specifically is the integration between agriculture and these solar projects. It's called Agrivoltaics. That's, yeah, taking solar and farming together. So with limited land constraints, yeah, we're on an island, right? We have only a certain amount of land. We're not like Nevada or something where we can put large, vast projects in many different places. We kind of have to intermesh the two together. So Big Island has been stacking these functions like growing food or having sheep and doing that alongside these solar projects. And Big Island specifically is the top agricultural producer for all the islands. We make the most food here just due to our land availability, and there will be competition between these solar entities and land use. And we need to find a way to make the two come together, which is really interesting. Nothing super set in stone. These are all just like projects that are happening, things that people are doing. So we're learning a lot as we're moving forward towards our 2045 goals. This is the Skygrid. It's a microgrid in North Kahala. This is kind of a little bit of an intersection between that land use piece and agriculture as well, since agriculture is super embedded here in the way of life. So this is like a wind power plant and a storage system. It's a battery, and they're actually pretty far from the nearest fossil fuel plant. So they need to have their energy a little more available and ready to them. This helps them stay economically viable while adapting to climate change and the market shifts that happen, as well as maximizing that land use. I think what's also super important to highlight here is that it honors local expertise alongside engineers and energy planners. And another key important part is that agricultural producers here on island are predominantly families and individuals. So these are people who are very vulnerable to these changes. And Paniolo and cowboy culture is so big here. It's a large intersection of where sustainability can go alongside Aloha Aina and all these other ideas. So this really highlights the potential use of these different projects and like what we can learn from them. This is where it's located. It's up there in the north part of the island. As you can notice, it's super far away from anything energy generation. It's like a really tough area to get to. So a microgrid is like a small self-contained energy system that can operate independently or in connection with the main power grid. So it typically includes a mix of things like solar, storage, control systems, as well as it services a specific area. So say you're somewhere rural and you have specific energy needs, microgrids can be a good way of having resilience towards instability. The Skygrid has been fully operational since April of 2013, so we're going on a couple years here. So it has a battery bank as well as solar panels, it has wind generation, and it has the capability of pumping more than 30 million gallons of water annually. And it's being used currently to irrigate 400 acres of agricultural land and supports 14 participating farms and agricultural businesses. It's a locally sourced energy source, and it enhances the area for self-reliance and resilience. It really is a matter of survival during crisis in that area. When you have all this extra energy, say you have a ton of sunlight, you have a lot of extra energy you need to take care of. And being on an island where we're far away, we're not connected to these mainland systems, right? And so the Big Island must balance generation versus demand in real time, literally as it's happening. We can't be like, hey, yo, Nevada, come bring us some energy. We're going to purchase it from you. Like, no, everything has to come from here. So between all these different methods, whether it be solar, whether it be storage, whether it be wind or whatever, there is sometimes an overabundance of electricity, especially with solar. So a solution to store this overabundance is all these storage systems, and it can be used circumstantially, whether you need it or not, to kind of balance that peak demand. And that usually occurs between like 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. when people return home from work. You know, people are turning on their air conditioning, they're doing their cooking, they're turning on the lights, they're doing laundry, you know, all the normal things that we have in this modern life. And so when solar generation drops off past 5 p.m., you know, the sun does set, demand stays high, but there's no more solar to take care of that. So during the day, we can take that excess, store it for when we need it, say like at night. So we're balancing supply and demand. So solar and some other renewable energies are what we consider intermittent. They don't always produce energy when it's needed, but storage systems like batteries store that excess energy when production is high and release it when energy is needed. This enhances grid stability because it stabilizes the voltage, the frequency. It can help prevent power outages if they were to happen, and brownouts, which are super big here. And it kind of acts like a little bit of a shock absorber, a little bit of wiggle room there. It maximizes renewable energy use because without storage, that renewable energy would just get curtailed, wasted. It just wouldn't be used. It's a little sad. And so that captures the extra energy where it can be used a little bit later on, which improves resilience because during emergencies or natural disasters or what be it, that stored energy can be used as an essential thing. It keeps the system running, especially in these remote, rural island communities like here, Hawaii, or anywhere else in the world that might be similar. And this also just saves money. People love to save money. It helps reduce the need for expensive peak plants, which are usually, powered by fossil fuels and only run during certain times. And then it also supports time of use pricing, allowing customers or utilities to buy or store energy when it's cheap and use it when prices are high. A lot of things happening here. Another method of storage, if we don't want to do the traditional battery pack, is hydro. So a little bit how that works is there's two reservoirs. There's one up top and one down below. And then the upper reservoir during the day when there's excess energy is filled. So say your solar system has a little bit of excess, it'll use that excess energy to pump water up, and there it'll just hang out till we need it. So whenever we do need it, they'll release the valve, it'll go down, it'll turn a turbine and give us energy when we need it. Super, super cool. Why it's super valuable is because it has a large capacity, lots of energy that can happen there. It's actually much more energy than a typical battery can give you. It can last a really long time. It lasts for multiple hours, even days if we need it. It's super quick. You literally just flip a switch, water's running, let's go. Has a long lifespan. Facilities can last anywhere of 50 plus years. We don't see too much of this here. Most of our efforts are actually focused on battery packs just due to the topographical and natural sensitivities that we have here. But there are studies being done on how other storage methods can be a way to resilience here. And there's a lot of talk about it. And then you would think that since Hawaii has a ton of natural rivers and waterfalls, that maybe this type of storage would be super, super popular, but it's actually due to those same reasons that it's not. Like, we really want to conserve the natural beautiful landscape, as well as, it's culturally significant too. So there's a lot of different variables that come into play when we're thinking about what is smartest, what should we be doing next, what is the right answer. There may not be a right answer. It's just what works, trial and error, what people have to say about it. So now that we're following the flow of water, we're going to talk about a different type of flow. Geothermal, lava, all that fun stuff, super popular here. Geothermal energy is a significant renewable resource here in Hawaii, particularly here on the Big Island. Volcanic activity creates the ideal condition for tapping into that heat that is below. So what is geothermal energy? Geothermal energy comes from the heat stored beneath the Earth's surface. In Hawaii, the heat is close to the surface because of our volcanic activity, so especially around Kilauea and Mauna Loa. So geothermal plants extract this heat by drilling deep wells into the rock formations, using steam or hot water, and then it'll come up and turn turbines and generate electricity, and then re-injecting the cooled water back underground to maintain pressure and keep the system going. So Hawaii's main geothermal plant is Puna Geothermal Venture. It's located in the Puna district here in Hawai'i Island. It can make up to 38 megawatts of electricity. And it has a huge significance here because it is 20% of the island's electricity. In 2018, it did get particularly close to the lava flow, so it was closed down due to some safety concerns, but it was reopened in 2020 because it expanded its capacity to be safer. So some of the benefits of geothermal is it's a baseload power. It's not like solar or wind where it's, kind of intermittent, happens when it happens constantly. It is a 24/7, always on, not weather dependent electricity. Has very low emissions. It produces minimal greenhouse gases. It's so local. It's literally in my backyard. It reduces the import fuel and also enhances our energy independence, because energy independence comes from things that are already here. So it has a small land footprint. It actually requires less space than solar or wind farms per megawatt produced. That being said, there are a lot of challenges and considerations to take when going this route, such as some environmental risks. There's a potential for some seismic activity stuff, not proven, not disproven. There's still a lot learned. We're still learning a lot from this. It's relatively new. Groundwater contamination, as well as the one that I've heard the most about from my community is hydrogen sulfide gas emissions. Another important part is maybe the cultural sensitivity. In general, geothermal development projects interact with native Hawaiian culture and spiritual values, especially within these volcanic regions, just because a lot of ceremony and stuff happens around there. And there are also lots of communities that live near there. So there's a lot of community concerns that happen from these projects. Past projects have faced opposition related to the noise that it emits, the air quality, and the kind of transparency that maybe lacks in the geothermal field here. Back in the 60s, that's kind of like when this drilling for these holes kind of started, but it wasn't really regulated. So there's been a couple people who kind of just went out there and drilled holes willy-nilly, did a bunch of weird things without asking anyone. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions on that, as they should. But looking ahead, Hawaii continues to explore geothermal transmission or expansion, but it has to be balanced with technical potential as well as environmental protections. And the most important piece is going to be the community input, just because it is a very sensitive thing for Hawaiians. It's in an area of cultural significance. So the island faces real tensions, like between expanding geothermal and protecting these sacred lands and cultural sites. Back in 2018, Puna geothermal venture faced major concerns and scrutiny during the Kilauea volcanic eruption, which raised alarm across Hawaii islands and communities. Some of the key concerns from that time were the proximity to the lava flows. As you can see in that left photo, the lava came pretty darn close. Lava from the Lower East Rift Zone eruption came dangerously close to PGV, and residents feared that if the lava breached the plant, it could trigger a catastrophic release of toxic gases or cause explosions. The lava eventually did overrun some wells and infrastructure, including access roads and a warehouse. So things did happen, but there were a lot of safety measures that were put into place to stop anything super terrible from happening. And then since then, there have been more safety precautions that have gone into place to prevent all these things. And then to speak on the hydrogen sulfide, the gas releases a little bit. It releases a small amount of hydrogen sulfide, which is toxic and flammable, and it kind of smells like strong, rotten eggs. It kind of smells like lava, which is funny. During the eruption, there was a heightened fear that damaged equipment or blocking vents could lead to uncontrolled gas releases, but PGV and the state officials maintained that emissions have been staying within regulated levels. But these trust issues from all this stuff without talking about the community first still linger. And then when the event did happen, the safety precautions that were put in place was PGV quenched and capped the geothermal wells. They sealed them as many as they could. But yeah, still this public skepticism whether the plant's safety were sufficient or even done in a timely manner, because they knew that this was happening. They knew that this was going to be a possibility. And it kind of really wasn't taken care of until the last minute, the last second. And the lack of the transparency and real-time communication was what really hindered this community anxiety surrounding this type of energy. And then, yeah, again, some of the community concerns are cultural concerns about drilling into Pele's domain, as well as the noise, smell, and risk. Which brings us back into the idea of resiliency. Hawaii is leading the way. We are proud collectivist state, reaching for 100% renewable energy by 2045. We're the first state to literally commit to the Paris Agreement. We don't use coal anymore for electrical generation. We're well on our way to net negative. We've more than doubled our renewable energy from 20% to 40% in 2022. I would really like to see if anyone else is doing anything like this. This is the first I've ever heard of this, and I've been in the sustainability field for about 10 years now. It's really like, I don't think aggressive is the right word, but very on the forefront of sustainable practices. Like there's a lot of projects and love and thought that is going into getting us to these goals. We're kind of the first ones. We're literally like the pioneers of doing it. To be able to reach our 100% energy goal, we really need to focus on renewable energy. We need to look at our efficiency. There's a lot of habits that need to change as well. But I don't doubt that Hawaii can totally get there just from living here and understanding the culture, the way of being, how things need to be in this idea of sovereignty. I really do believe it will happen. Community members are very diligently aware of our circumstances. There's always real-time updates and community input that's happening. These two photos I actually screenshot from last night. So our power went out last night, and almost immediately people were on social media, on Facebook pages, talking to each other. We talked to our neighbors about it. These conversations are happening in real time here all the time. And it's really, really, really cool to see. I think it's also very interesting that the community here has really strong opinions. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's really important to have opinions, because that's the only way that we can develop projects and sustainable practices that are actually going to be sustainable and last. And that being said, the social currency here is super, super strong. Like if you do something wrong, everyone in the whole neighborhood's going to know about it. And that kind of falls into these projects. Like there's a lot of accountability that's built into the cultural systems here. So I think that's really interesting. Like the idea of Aloha Aina, which is to love the land. The foundation of Hawaiian value promotes deep care and respect for the environment as well. It helps encourage the shift away from fossil fuels, which degrades ecosystems. It makes us work more towards clean energy. It's regenerative. Yeah, so like things like solar, wind, and geothermal fall in line with Aloha Aina values, as well as community-centered decision-making. Hawaiian communities traditionally emphasize collectivist thinking and well-being over individual gain. I think that is super huge to think about when we're thinking about sustainable practices and going forward into the renewables endeavors that whatever we may find ourselves into. These overarching ideas are super important to the implementation of where we're going. Responsibility for future generations really supports our investments in this resilient infrastructure, like energy storage, our efficiency, and grid modernization. These things will be easily adopted just through our cultural lenses and beliefs. The innovation through indigenous knowledge is super, super important. Like traditional Hawaiian knowledge systems like lo'ikalo or irrigation, ahupua'ua, and like land division is all super, super important. It really gives value to localized resource management, which could be the base for other development projects all around the world. These models inspire modern systems such as agrivoltaics, that's something that we adopt here, microgrids, as well as energy planning systems. So that being said, there's also cultural advocacy and sovereignty. Again, that idea of being reliant on ourselves. The drive for energy sovereignty and control over local energy productions is rooted in the broader Hawaiian sovereignty movement. It reduces dependence on imported fuels, both politically and self-determinantly, as well as creating economic independence. And super important to touch on the storytelling and education aspect of the culture here. Mele and mo'olelo and all that, and education, it mobilizes people into these energy issues, because if you can bring it back to what's important to the community is when you can really make a lot of change. So it kind of helps frame climate and energy challenges in ways that can resonate super deeply with local values and the identity that is here. And then the overarching idea of that we can be a lesson plan almost for the world is place-based energy solutions, and looking at those kinds of projects is super important when we're doing international development anywhere else. What is similar? What is different? What is geographically similar? What is the spiritual and cultural, importance of these places? It really does help encourage the careful selection of energy projects, because with strong community input and consideration, that's where true sustainability can come into play. So if we were to look at Hawaii and other places, this is just kind of like a random list I made. So like, say if Denmark was trying to do solar, or they had similar goals of us to reaching, similar climate goals, they could directly look at what we're doing. And since we're such a, individualized conglomerate, we're off by ourselves. We are not attached to any other system. We're literally doing this for ourselves, by ourselves. And that's kind of like a little petri dish, like science. Like, here's what's happening. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't work. And here's my little test tube of why I can show you why it doesn't. And that's really, really interesting. And I think I really do believe like Hawaii can be like a blueprint for so many things in so many different places of the world. It really is incredible. So some of the lessons: diversification builds resilience rather than rely on one renewable resource. The island shows how diversified grid can handle intermittency and shocks, as well as build resiliency through its people. And to say that we are resilient already is true, but I think we're kind of more on our way there still, which is kind of like why we're the lab, the little petri dish. We're still on our way to being like the full developed project end goal. So what works here can work in remote or developing regions elsewhere. Microgrids and self-contained energy systems are scalable solutions for rural communities worldwide. Decentralization and community empowerment and values are keys to a just transition. Keeping in mind what's important to these communities, what works and what doesn't, is super important. And that energy innovation isn't just technical, it's cultural, it's ethical, and ecological. Sustainability is holistic. It encompasses everything: people, politics, everything is probably so ingrained in sustainability, it's pretty crazy. So land use need to support multiple goals at once, especially here on an island. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening. This is just a little piece of the puzzle and how my brain works. And if you have any questions for me, please shoot them. Or if you want to contact me, my contact information is there as well.
Well, thank you very much. We have about 5 minutes for questions.
5 minutes. Yeah, I'll just do a summary talk and then open it up for our fellow wayfinders to ask even more deep and probing questions. So wrap up, this is a visionary presentation, and ideally the airlines would have it as one of their programs that you can watch when you're flying from the mainland to Hawaii, and just plug this in and here's everything you ever wanted to know about energy, especially on the Big Island. That's how visionary it is. Tess, congratulations on that. I like the phrases of Petri dish, blueprint, lesson plan. But let me turn it over to our fellow Wayfinders. Do our Wayfinders have access to audio?
Oh, yeah, Tess, I thought that was a great presentation. It definitely seems like you know, we started only 3 months ago, and it seems like you've wrapped your head around a lot of these things. And yeah, I think this was a great exercise for Howard to toss us into the frying pan so we actually know what we're talking about and do our research and have everything checked off. And yeah, no questions come to mind, but really great presentation, Tess.
I
I've
like
got
the
a
frying pan analogy. I definitely felt the heat.
I've got a maybe a quick one. Have you looked into the contribution and potential of biofuels on the Big Island? I know there was a project that had some opposition and other things like that. If you might comment on what your thoughts on that are, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot happening there. I know that there's a plant right now that's being converted into a biofuel plant. I don't know if anything's up and operational right now. I think it's definitely worth a try. It's very interesting to see, and there's a lot of loopholes also as well. I know back in like the year 2000 or 2005 or something, they wanted to grow all these trees to become biofuels, and now these trees are still here because it's technically not a renewable resource and such. So there's a lot of different like nuances and things that are happening either politically or whatever that are being talked about. I honestly think it's a good thing, but that's just my opinion. I think the more things that we can try, the more we can see what does work and what doesn't work. Coming back to that little petri dish idea of like, let's have a little experiment. You know what? If it doesn't work, then we learned a whole lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, many years ago, I worked on a project to consider Hawaii supplying its own energy. Now I have to realize this was probably in the 1980s, so it's pretty out of date. And the one thing that killed the project more than anything else, because of the enormous cost, was interconnecting the islands, because Big Isle could generate, in theory at that time, any of the other islands. And it'd be great if they could export that excess generated energy to the other islands. But the cost of an underground cable, a huge problem was the very steep underwater slopes off of Big Isle that made it almost financially impractical to be able to interconnect the islands. And I wonder if anybody has thought of that and if it's got any further now as a potential for Big Isle to be a primary supplier.
Bill, Bill, you worked on that project as well. You want to comment? The concept was that there was a vast resource, geothermal resource, but the major market for power is Oahu. And unless you can bring that source into conjunction with the market, you really have tremendous limitations on the development of geothermal. But both the cost and as Frank mentioned, some of the obstacles on the ocean floor were substantial. We did spend $28 million of federal money to demonstrate, and the data supports it, that if you want to do that, it can be done. There are no technical reasons why you cannot interconnect those two, but I am unaware of any subsequent interest since the mid-90s.
And I know there are many other questions out there, but we have been around since 1902, and one of those reasons for longevity is that we start on time and end on time, and it's just about ending time. Tess, can you see the first and only certificate that you will ever receive in your young life? That's a small joke. I'm sure you've received many already. I will put this on Parker's desk, and it will get to you eventually. So I want to point out that Sam archives all of these programs, and I think this is very much an archivable, or not archivable, usable program that to get out of the archives and use far and wide. So thank you so much, Tess. And on that very, very, very cheery note, Barbara, President Rogers will close us out with great ceremony and aplomb.
Well, thank you so much for arranging to have such a great speaker. And once again, Tess, we truly appreciate your presentation. Thank you all. And all of the WayFinders, I didn't know that were that many. So we have a lot more to hear in the future. All right, at this time, I'll remind you that our next meeting is May 16th. Put that on your calendar, and we hope to see many of you in the future. And again, Howard, thank you. And the meeting is now adjourned on time.
Engineers and architects of Hawaii welcome your comment on this program and any of our recent programs. We encourage your direct participation in this community outreach. So please email us your comments and ideas at eahawaii@gmail.com.